All right, guys, we are live with Billy Smith, one of the original Keystone Cops, and I'm so pleased to have Billy with us tonight. How are you doing, my friend?
Well, as Luke would say, I'm finer than a frog hair.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we've been chatting a little bit, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Conversations with Commodores. And of course, you guys, if anybody has been part of this program, you guys know who's on the other side here with me. Billy and the rest of the fellas have been part of that long-standing tradition of being a volunteer with the football program, and most notably with all of the equipment, because that stuff doesn't get washed by itself, and it certainly doesn't make it to the ball games by itself. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But Billy, I hope you're doing well, being safe, being smart. I know we're in an upside down world right now, but I love that room you're in. Tell us where are you? That looks like a man cave of some sort.
This is my man cave where I'm at.
That is so awesome.
It's
So
Billy's
awesome.
man cave.
I see a bunch of memorabilia behind you, and I posted that awesome picture of all of your bling from 4 of the bowl games. Thank you for
Yeah,
sending that. That's a cool thing.
yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
Absolutely. But for any of you guys who may not have known, Billy retired after 30 plus years with Nashville Metro Police as a sergeant. And for most of that time, he was active, not only doing his full day responsibilities, day or night responsibilities, but whenever the football program needed him for 38 seasons, he was there for the Commodores. And along with 3 or 4 others, and we're going to get into all those guys in just a minute. You guys were the heart and soul of the program. Frankly, the games we weren't able to do what was needed to be done without you guys getting the equipment wherever it needed to be going. And I want to give a special shout out to Gary Rogers at Check Your Game. Gary obviously played with us in the 90s, and there you go. He recently honored the fellas who made up over 200 years collectively, or 200 seasons,
250 plus.
250 plus seasons of volunteering and giving back to the program. So thank you, Billy, and I hope that everybody got their packages and have seen what Gary was trying to honor you guys with.
Yeah.
Billy,
Well, I can't say enough about it. I can't, I guess the older you get, the more sentimental you get about things and everything. And I kind of got to me when I got it. So I
I
appreciate it.
bet it did. Well, it was well earned and more so. Billy, before we get into your time helping out with the program, talk to us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? High school? Did you go to college? Talk to us a little bit about where you're from originally before you came involved with the program.
Okay. I was born in Newport News, Virginia. My father and mother, they lived in East Nashville. Dad was in the military and come back to Nashville, and I attended East High School. I'm not going to name the elementary schools I went to, but I attended East High School, played football there at East High School. Uh, I played baseball during the summer and played basketball with the church league. And so pretty much I was into sports a whole lot. I love sports. I joined the police department in '74. Let me back up here a minute. When I graduated high school in '66, the Vietnam War was hot and heavy, and they drafted all my friends. I mean, everybody I ran with was gone. And I figured, well, it's just going to be a matter of time. Then I'm going to have to be shipped out of here. So I went down to 8th and Broad and joined. I took 3 years instead of getting drafted and taking the 2. A year later, ended up in Vietnam. Stayed there from '67 to '68. Wasn't a good year for me. uh, I was 19 years old when I was there in Vietnam. I joined the police department. Come back, joined the police department in '74. Worked regular hours, worked a regular job in patrol, and I got transferred to various places. My last one was checks and fraud division as a detective, and I got promoted to sergeant and was over that bureau. And from there, I worked for Chief Russell, and Bobby was a sergeant at the time, but I'm going to refer to him as Chief from here on out because that's what he was, and that's what he is to us. And Danny was a lieutenant, and like I said, I'm made sergeant. So we would have to, in order to do, back up again, Bill Kelly approached Bobby and asked Bobby, said that there was two guys driving a truck, and it was Richard Baker and Evan. I know a lot of people who know them too. They were two of the black guys that done Richard Baker was there for 50-something years.
I remember Mr. Baker. He was there during my time too.
Yeah, and they got he got tired of it and everything, so he asked if Bill could get somebody to do it. So Bobby came to me and Danny, and Danny's my uncle, and we both were on the police department at the same time. And so yeah, we said we'll try it and see what happens from there on in. Well, the first game was in Indiana, and we were hooked. We were hooked from there on. And I've been like a kid in a candy
Billy,
store.
what season was that?
It was 1974.
Okay.
I can.
The first season that you were with the program, was that
1974. I was 79. 1979.
Okay. So you had been on the police force about 4 or 5 years at that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Bobby had security of all the Vanderbilt stuff.
Okay. And so your first trip was at Indiana in 79.
Oh yeah. I'll never forget that one.
And that,
we pulled up.
Tell us a little bit about that first trip, what you remember.
When we first pulled up in Indiana, we was unloading stuff and taking it in the dressing room. So once we got inside the dressing room, we was all standing outside. It's just three of us, me, Danny, and Bob. And we was waiting for Kelly to fly in. And we were met by one of the worst coaches I've ever met in my life, which was I had his own tip of my tongue, Lee Corso.
Uh-huh.
And he said, y'all going to have to get back inside because we're going to practice. And so Bobby looked at him and says, we don't know nothing about football. We're just equipment guys. He said, well, if you don't get it, go inside. I'm going to call the security after it. So Bobby said, looks like you're going to have to call them. So the guy come up there and we showed him our badges and everything. He said, just kindly hang around inside. Don't even go around there where you can see you. But that was the first game that I was at. And I thought, I'll never forget that one. I couldn't stand Corso from that day on.
And even up till now, you remember that. That's so awesome. But Billy, we've got so many folks who've rolled in here. I want to tell you who's watching with us, okay? It looks like Julie and Luke Wyatt are there. Gene Wyndham. Megan.
Luke's like the brother I never had.
That's right. Aunt Bradford, Gary Gerson, Harold Lurchus. Thank you guys for rolling in here. We're just taking a little trip down memory lane with Billy Smith, and right now he's telling us about his first trip, and that happened to be at Indiana with Lee Corso. Well, now after that trip, did you realize that 38 years later you'd still be toting equipment all over the country?
No, I sure didn't, and I loved every year of it. And I only missed 3 games the whole time. One was I got married to my lovely bride now, and I had an operation on one of them, and one of them I was sick, I couldn't go. So I only missed 3 out of 38 years.
Well, that's a pretty strong record in my opinion. But Billy, talk to us a little bit about, and even some of the players may not know this, some of the procedure that you guys would go through starting on Thursday nights, so that, by the time they got to the game, wherever it may be, up at Syracuse, over at Miami, Athens, wherever it was that you guys were taking the equipment, all they knew is that it was waiting on them on Friday when they showed up for the walkthrough. So back up a little bit and talk to us about what started on Thursday night and how you guys did what you did to get the stuff where it needed to be.
Well, we were told to be over at a certain time by Kelly, and then later on with Luke, the same thing. We was told to be over a certain time with him. And so what we would do is Luke had a system. And so what we would do after practice, they would come in and take all their stuff off. And so Luke would always tell them, so be sure to pack your bags, shoulder pads and shoes and things like that. Put them in a separate bag. We'd take care of the shoulder pads and everything else. And what we had to do was he had a number thing, and he would holler out what number you would pick up. You'd holler it out, and Bobby would mark it off. And so we'd make sure we had everything. If there was 70 players going, we had to have 70 items. We had to have 70 shoulder pads. And let's see, what else was it? There was some more stuff that went along with it, but they made sure they had to put their mouthpieces in and everything. And so after we'd get everything packed up, we'd do what we call a preload. If there's taking fans or something like that, we'd put them on there, or heaters for the cold games or stuff like that. We'd have that on there, and then we'd start rolling out and taking it down that big hill right across where the stadium's at, that little winding stairway like. And so we'd go down there and put everything on the back of that truck, and we would load it from the front to the back, and it would be completely full of stuff. And once we get everything done, me, Bobby, and Danny would get in the truck, and at the time they had a van that would follow us, and we would drive to where we was going to go. And if it was like down in say Florida, going to Gainesville. If we go to Gainesville, we would get there early in the morning and go straight to the hotel and try to get a couple of hours, 3 or 4 hours sleep or something like that, whatever we could. Then by 7:30 or 8, we would go over to the stadium, unload again, set the dressing room up. If they had a walkthrough, there was some that do it. Some of the coaches would do a walkthrough and some wouldn't. We like the ones that did.
Well,
But anyway, we'd set that dressing room up, just that part of it, and then we would do whatever we had to do. Sometimes if we had a lot of time left, we'd go play golf. Some of us would, 7, 8 of us would. And then we'd get up the next morning on Saturday real early. If it was an early game or whatever, we get there 3 or 4 hours early, and we would continue setting up everything. We'd set up the shoulder pads had to go under the seats. The helmets all had to face the same way. The jerseys and everything had to be placed a certain way, whichever it was for that game. However, either Luke or Bill or Gary Veach, however they wanted to set it up, was set up according to the way they wanted it.
Well, Billy,
And, I would usually go, pardon?
let me pause you for just a second because I've got so many questions right in there. On a Thursday night, how long would it take you guys to load the van before you could leave campus?
Load the truck?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would take us a good 2 or 3 hours.
And then you still were
We had to
leaving.
wait till practice was over.
Right, right. And then y'all would leave after that and drive through the night?
Mm-hmm. All night.
Now, I know that you took trips up to Syracuse, down to Miami. I mean, those are not easy short drives. Those are, what, 15 to 20-hour drives?
Some of them are, yeah.
And y'all would just rotate sleeping and driving?
Yeah.
Wow, that is some monster dedication. Because, guys, y'all have got to remember, all of these guys, Bobby and Danny and Billy, they had their regular jobs too. I mean, that's just some awesome dedication, and to do it for so many years. But I know you guys did it out of complete labor of love, or you wouldn't have been doing it all these years.
Oh, it's like I was like a kid in a candy store.
Awesome.
I loved it.
Now on the sidelines, let's take it to when it's actually a game time on a Saturday. What were your responsibilities once the game was starting? Where were you guys, and what did you do?
Well, again, we were given a certain time to be there on a Saturday morning at game time, if it was at home. And what we would do is they would roll all the headset equipment out and stuff that they was going to use on the sideline, such as the fans and things like that. They would get all that out there, and we would assist. Back when in the Kelly days, they didn't have the headsets they had now, and they had to put these cords on them, and wherever coach went, you had to be behind him with that cord and everything, and each one of us was designated a cord.
Those cords were horrible. Those cords.
That was the worst.
They were horrible.
You never got to watch a game.
Yeah. Now, were you ever assigned to a coach?
Yeah, I would alternate some of them, but Danny worked. This is funny here. You love it. Danny was we was playing somewhere. I think I don't forget. Well, anyway, we was playing away from home, and Danny had Christophel. Christophel's cold. And so Christopher was like, he was all over the place. He'd be at one end and the other. And Danny had to go with him everywhere. So finally, he was just getting tired. And he yanked that cord to Christopher and he said, would you stop so I can watch one damn play?
Well, Coach Christopher was the quarterbacks coach during my time there, and I remember
Yeah,
how animated. He's still on the sidelines and he's in the pros, so he's been coaching a long time.
yeah.
Um, I want to welcome Patrick Brunner and Cal Jumper. Thank you guys. I'm talking with Billy Smith, one of the original Keystone Cops, and if you guys don't know where that name came from, I want you to share that story, Billy. How did you guys get nicknamed affectionately the Keystone Cops?
Well, after a while, we were doing things and everything, and everybody knew that we were police officers taking time off doing it. And Kelly, just out of the blue one day, said something about somebody asked him a question. He said, I don't know, go ask the Keystone Cops. And that's how we got the name. But, we took it and we took it as an honor, because we had so much fun with it.
Well, that's what I remember about the three of y'all. There was laughter all the time. You
Oh,
guys
yeah.
were in the best of moods. You always had an inside joke or something going on, and there was always smiles. Now, not everything was fun in games. We had some tough losses, of course. We had some nice wins, but for you to be there for five bowl games and getting rings for four of them really just was a real tribute. I know that they thought of you guys, as we all did, as part of the team. You were teammates. You weren't on the field, but you did everything else to get us ready. Brian Gruber says to tell you hello, Billy.
Oh, Lord. I love Brian. He's good. We used to
Very
go to South
good.
Street and eat before we left.
Very good. Well, Billy, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I want you to tell us here and now some of the prima donnas that you guys had to work around and had to deal with over the years. Now, your years stretched from 79 to about 2016. And by the way, Dwayne Jones just popped on. Hey, Dwayne, I want you to tell us who are those guys who are the special players, the prima donnas y'all had to deal with.
Well, the biggest one to me was Kurt Page. Uh, we went down to Ole Miss, and he had to have a certain kind of sock, and we didn't. Kelly, I mean, it wasn't Kelly, it was Luke. Luke didn't love it, and so while we was down there, we had to go to the sportsman store down there. So we had to get in the truck and drive the truck down to the sportsman store just to get him that special pair of socks. Now, you know. Uh, there was a bunch of prima donnas, and I couldn't go through all of them. But one of the funniest things was there was before the game one day. I was walking in there to get some kid something that he needed, and it was like three or four players standing in front of the mirror, and they make sure they're looking good.
Uh-huh.
And I walked up behind them. I told them, I says, it doesn't matter how you play the game; it's how good you look.
That's right. That's right. Now, I've always heard stories about Rob Monaco. I want you to tell us about Rob Monaco and his habits.
Oh Lord, Rob was a special person. He would never let us take his shoulder pads to any game, and on away games, he would never let us load them. He would always keep them. He would take them, put them on the plane with him, and he would once he got to the destination where there's going to be, I don't care where it was, Kansas or wherever, he would always sleep with his shoulder pads, and
That's
that's
so
the gospel.
funny. Oh, that's so funny. That's great. You know, athletes all have their superstitions. They all have the little things that just puts them in the right mindset. And if it helps, it helps. You don't want to mess with most of those. But I want to take you to some games now, Billy. You were there for some really special games, and share with us one or two of those that really stand out the most, that really are vivid in your memory about you were there that day and it's a game you'll never forget or two.
Well, to start, when I was working with Kelly. I thought no, it was Luke. I think Luke. Well, it was me and Luke. We were running balls down at Ole Miss, and we were down in the end zone, far not close to the end zone. Luke and I were standing there, and that's when Chucky Mullins hit Brad, speared him, and Luke and I heard a snap. I mean, it was just you could hear it. And Luke looked over at me, and I looked at him, and Chucky didn't fall. He just went straight down. He just like went down. And Luke looked over at me, and he said, "Billy," and I said, I was just shaking my head, and he said, "He ain't gonna get up." And it hurt me to see a player get hurt like that. I don't care who he's playing for. It just hurt me to see a player get hurt like that. And with all that Brad went through after that and everything, I'll never forget that.
Billy, that game was in the fall of '89. That was my senior year. I was there on the sidelines. That was on a third
Yeah,
down. We were deep in their territory, and I held for extra points and field goals, but we didn't know what to do. We kind of came on the field and we came off the field. But you're right, for about 45 minutes there, it was one of the most surreal um, events that I had ever witnessed in person in a sporting event. It was very sad, very tragic, and we know that Brad has struggled with that for all those years, and we certainly wish
oh, he
him.
still does.
So take us to some other games that stand out. I know there's a special one or two that you're thinking of.
Oh well, two times. Two times. My favorite was the time that I went to Army, and being in the Army and being an Army brat and everything. To me, that was Mecca. I mean, that was Mecca. And so the last time we went to Army, we set the dressing room up, and Luke said something like, "Y'all go on and come back in about 20 minutes, and the team should be here." He said, "But I want to meet with everybody before then." So when we come back in, Luke had talked to one of the equipment managers over for Army, and I had no knowledge, none whatsoever, what was going on. And so when we all come back, we was in a circle around this little cabinet thing that Luke had, and he says, "Well, I got a presentation for somebody," and he said that I want him to step up here right now, and he said, "Billy, step up here." Well, at that time, Bobby went over and said something to Luke, and they started laughing. And I thought, my first thought was, this is screw Billy Smith day. I'm in the barrel. So he said, "I want to thank you for all the service you gave to the city of Nashville and all the service you've given to me and Kelly over the years." And he said, "and most of all for your service in Vietnam." And he said, "I want you to have this." And he reached under the cabinet and pulled out this new Army helmet and presented it to me. And that's one I'll never forget. I'll never forget it.
Wow.
And
Billy, it's
then,
a lot of times it's those memories off the field that are so vivid and so much more imprinted on our minds. What goes on the field, we do remember those, of course, but it's those special moments like you're describing that I'm so glad you shared it with us. But thank you. I know that was a special time for you, and thank you for your service, not only in Vietnam, but on the Metro Nashville Police Force for all those years.
my honor, my honor. So
Absolutely. All
in
right,
the next one,
I want you to take us to to Knoxville, because I know
oh
there was a good
Lord,
game there.
there, the year we beat Tennessee with Cutler, uh, Bobby had left to go in. Well, he and I both left to go in and get the baskets ready. It's toward the end of the game, and we were getting beaten. And all of a sudden, I come back out and go, "Bobby, I'll come back in with the team." And so I went out on the sideline, and I was standing there when Jay hit what's his name,
Earl Bennett.
Earl Bennett, and I thought he killed him. He hit him so hard, and so Jay come walking off the field after they scored and everything, and he, hey, always done his shoulder pads, that little look he had. And he looked over at the defense coach and he said, "Coach," he says, "it's in your hands now. I've done all I can do." And then we were ahead 20, I think it was 28-24 is what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
And So that coach, I mean, just the look on his face, like, why'd you put this on me? We still had like 4 or 4 minutes in the game. So I took off running to the dressing room, and I told Bobby, I said, we just scored and went ahead. He saw you lying. I said, no, we went ahead. So I go back out there and stand in the end zone to watch it, and then Vanderbilt intercepted that pass, and we won the ball game. And so I went and got Bobby, and he said, what are you so happy about? I said, we just beat them. I'll never forget that as long as I live. And Jay, he signed one of my programs and everything for me. And he said, y'all just have a good time. And he didn't have a lot to say, but I mean, that was a big day for us. And there wasn't a dry eye in that dressing room. Harold Gregory was crying. Luke was crying. Bobby and Danny had tears in their eyes. I mean, it's just something we never got to see for a while up there in Knoxville.
Well, Billy, it had been, I think, more than a quarter century since we had won at Knoxville before that game. Some of you historians may know better, but I remember watching that game, and I was choking up too. I mean, we all were, because that was such a great victory for the program. I want to take you away from Knoxville now, and I want to head down to New Orleans. And Dwayne and Luke wanted me to ask you about the truck and what happened at Tulane. So you got to share that story with us. There's got to be something good there.
We got down to Tulane, and when we got to the Superdome, they told you to back it in, and so me and Bobby gets out behind the truck, and so we're backing it in, and we got Danny coming around with it, and all of a sudden he hits one of these water sprinklers, and so he kept coming. He hit another one, and we were hollering, no, no, no. And Danny thought we said, go, go, go. So he started backing up quicker, and he knocked off a bunch of them. Well, the next thing we know, they had a crew of about 25, 30 people out there through squeegees trying to get that water turned off and get it through the drain pipes and everything. So that was a big deal down there.
I bet it could have been a whole lot worse. But speaking of worse, I know that you guys have not always had the best of trucks. There has to be a time or two where you've had to unload and reload trucks in a heartbeat, probably even out of town. So you got to share with us some of those scrambling, oh, I can't believe we're doing this moments. Do you remember any of those games?
Yeah, we were going to Maryland. We were going to play Maryland, and the alternator went out on the truck. It had no power or nothing in it. And Bobby and Danny walked down to this little market, and they called a record company to come up there and get us. And so this was early in the morning. We left at a good time that night, so we had plenty of time. And so they pulled us into the garage in Knoxville. And when we got inside there, they pulled us beside the Tennessee truck. And they told us, said that, y'all want to go ahead and load on this one over here since they're not playing this weekend. And we had some nice words for them and everything, but we turned it down.
Yeah,
But we made it into Maryland on time. Let me say this too. Of the 30 years that we done that, especially me and Bobby, because Danny quit kind of later on, and we were never complained on one time about anything we did, never. And we broke down twice, two or three times, but we always made it. We were there on time.
And I know that they certainly appreciate it. But you guys also, it wasn't just you and Danny and Bobby. There were a lot of student managers over the years, and there were also some others who volunteered. Do you have any names that come to mind who weren't necessarily students at the time, but just loved the program and just wanted to be part of it and to help out? Do any names come to mind?
Yeah, I said Harold. Harold was one of he's the matriarch of the whole bunch. James Arundel, we called him Rollo, and he worked in armed robbery with the police department. And this guy, I don't know if you've ever seen him or not, but he's huge. He's massive. He'd go about 240. Maybe not that much, but I mean, he's just big. He's about like 6'6", 6'7", something like that. He's just a big guy.
Wow. And,
we'd clown around sometime in the hotel lobby or something. He'd grab me and I'd scream like a woman. I mean, this guy was huge. And we had Dwayne. We had a kid named Ruff that became a doctor, and he's up, I think, Indiana's where he's at now. He's a doctor in Indiana. Let's see, who else was it? Sam Lieben and Dan. They were a big part of it.
And Billy, I noticed that Sam is now watching with us, so I want to welcome Sam, Joe Staley, Wilbert Pryor. Thank you guys for stopping by with Billy Smith for a few minutes. I didn't mean to
Chicken
interrupt you,
wing.
Billy.
Yeah, chicken wing. I remember him. And Joe, good guy. Hi to all of y'all. And getting back to what I was talking about us and some other kids that were there. Oh Lord, I can't think of all of them right now, but most of them were. Arundel, when Danny quit, he come on with us, and like I said, he was just so fun to be around. He was even funnier than us. The stuff that he could do.
Well, Billy, being with the program for more than 35 years, you had countless number of coaches over that time span, all different personalities, all different the way they ran their programs. Did any of those coaches specifically stick out that you got some funny stories or some memorable times where you interacted? During my time period, I played for Watson Brown. And I know Watson was very, very fond of you guys, just for example.
Yeah. Watson stands out because I used to do this little thing with a hat. Let me show you how to do it. I used to have my hat on, and when I was standing there and talk to him, I'd take the hat off, hit him on the side of the jaw or something like that, and I'd ask him a question, and I'd come back and put my hat back on and hit him coming back. And everybody was just kind of like, they thought it was an accident or whatever. They didn't catch on to it, what I was doing. So Luke told me one day, he said, go over and do that to Watson. I said, no, I ain't going to do that to Coach Brown. He said, I'll go over and do it. He said, he won't say nothing. So I go over and Coach Brown's standing there, and I walk over and I said, well, you think we got and I hit him right in the head with that hat. I said, you got to think we got a chance of winning this one today, Coach? And he said, yeah, I don't see why not. At that time I come back up and hit him again. And so I asked him something else, don't know what it was, but I took my hat off and hit him again. And he looked at me and he said, if you hit me with that damn hat one more time. So,
he knew what you were doing.
Yeah, that was one of Luke's all-time favorites there. He liked that one.
Yeah, Luke was probably setting you up, knowing Luke.
Yeah.
Well, Billy, we're getting closer toward the end of our conversation, but I don't want to cut it off as long as you want to keep talking and folks are watching. I want to hear more from you about some of your memories, some of the things that made just being around the program special for you. Some of those things.
Well, I got some funnies that I could tell you.
Please.
We was driving to Knoxville one year, and it was me, Bobby, and Danny. This was in the early years, and there was a pickup truck that come up beside us. We was headed up the hill toward Knoxville, and this guy was sitting on the passenger side. He holds out a couple of joints. And so we give him thumbs up and everything. Me and Danny was sitting over by the window. And so he pulls on up. He lags back, and then he comes back up again, and he's got this bottle of Jack Daniels, and he holds it up with the joints and everything. And so we give him a thumbs up. So he pulls back again, and when he does, he comes up beside us. And me and Danny hold up our gun and badges. And he hit that exit, so I thought he was going to wreck going off that exit.
Oh man, so funny, so funny.
So I thought that was hilarious. I remember the time we went to Memphis, and it rained so hard that you couldn't even see the other team on the side of on the field. You couldn't see them at all. That's how hard it rains. In 1996, I'll never forget Bill Angel with that punt, fake punt, and run back against Alabama. I know everybody remembers that one. Let's see what else it was. I got some more stuff here. Coach Beelan. Coach Beelan was real cold natured. And so we was up at Tennessee, and it was one of them nights where it was just butt cold. I mean, it was cold. And so Coach Beelan, we knew that he would want an extra jacket. He wanted extra shirts under his clothes and everything. So I think it was Arundel went in the dressing room, and he had picked up some twigs. And he placed them around like a campfire in front of Beelan's locker and put a box of matches on there. Well, when Beelan come in there and Franklin and all them was standing in there, and they looked down at it and saw it. They just busted out laughing. They thought that was the coolest thing ever. Uh, let's see. Oh, and here's another one. June Jakes appreciate this one. She likes this one. There was a kid that played for Vanderbilt named Trey Champagne. I don't know if you ever remember or not, but he played, and he and Bernardo couldn't get along at all. They were just at it all the time. So Trey transfers out and goes to LSU. He sits out a year, so the very next year after that, we go down to LSU. And in the meantime, Bernardo quit and got the job at LSU. And so Trey come over to our dressing room and we're setting it up and everything, and he said, "What the hell did y'all send him down here for?" He said, "I won't ever get to play a ball game."
Couldn't
But I
get
think
away
he
from
ended
the
up
man.
playing.
Couldn't get
Do
away
I?
from him. I said he couldn't get away from him.
No, no. And that was one of the funniest things. Another time was down in Georgia, and Billy Cunningham, we couldn't find him, and he was sitting on top of the locker with his chair on top of the locker. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but I thought that was funny. But there, I have so many memories. Somebody said, "Won't you write a book?" And I said, "No, I'd get in trouble if I ever wrote a book." So.
Well, Billy, I want you to, in conclusion, as we're getting a little bit closer toward the end of our talk, and I really love all these stories and you sharing some of your best, most fondest memories. Talk to us a little bit. I know that I'm not going to ask you who the most difficult players were. We already talked about the prima donnas a little bit, but I know you had some favorite players and some favorite memories. So kind of go through that with a man who's been there for over 35 seasons. You've seen thousands of Commodores come through. And I know you had a good bond with some of these guys. So share with us a little bit about some of those special players that really stick out in your memory.
Whit Taylor sticks out. Whit, I will never forget the time that he played and was playing against Auburn, and the two quarterbacks got hurt. And I'll never forget Coach McIntyre walking over and putting his arm around him and says, "Whit, be careful, you're all we got." And we almost come back and beat them. We were down so bad, but we almost come back and beat them. And that was the start, pretty much, of Whit's career.
I was going to say he turned out to be a pretty good player.
Oh yeah, and when my son was playing high school football, they had to play Shelbyville where he was coaching, where Whit was coaching. So when I walked up there, when I drove up there, I walked across the line with my son, and I said, "This is my son right here," and he started laughing. He said, "Man, he was just a little red-headed thing when I knew him."
Awesome.
And so he said, "Y'all take it easy on us tonight." And I said, "Oh, they will." And Master Stratford beat them real bad. But yeah, Whit was one of my all-time favorites. Cutler, I like Cutler. He was just dry. He didn't say a lot, but he was fun to be around. Corey Chavis, you can't say enough about Corey. Oh Lord, Adam Butler, who's playing now for the Patriots. Last year the year after, I think is when it was when they won they won the Super Bowl. Adam sent me a real nice picture of him and signed it and everything. And Kerry Spear, my wife just idolized that kid because he was such a gentleman. He was a good guy. Let's tell you who else is it there. Jordan Matthews, probably one of the best tight ends that ever come out of Vanderbilt University. Oh, Zach Taylor. What's his name?
The running back?
On the wall there.
Talking about the running back, Zach Stacy?
Zach Stacy. I had a brain hemorrhage there. But there were so many of them. And even the ones that, I don't have the time to name and everything, all of them, I loved them like they were mine. And I always called them my kids. And, I don't have really any, what you call, true favorites. They all are my favorites.
Sure.
And I still hear from some of them now. And I'd like to say this in closing too. When we were let go out there, it was in such an improper manner. And I had a few scrapes about it and everything. I mean, it really hurt my feelings the way it was all went down. But since it's been my fourth year now that I hadn't been doing it. But after what I've been witnessing this week with hearing from all these guys, and uh, it's really given me a peace and it's given me a calm. And I could care less what they think out at Vanderbilt University, but these kids, what they said to me, you and everybody, I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I love each and every one.
Right here, Billy, and you've seen all the love this week, my friend, and it's from the heart from all of us, and we just and if there's any way for us to give back a little love to you, it's through this group and our conversation, and we just want you to know how appreciated you and Danny and Bobby, everybody who's been there for all of the players. Y'all were every bit a part of this team and this program as any scholarship athlete ever was. And because without you guys, we don't get to suit up on Saturdays. That's absolutely the way it is. But Billy,
It just blesses
really,
it just blesses my heart to know that these kids, they go out there on Saturday and they give it all they got, and yet they go to the classroom, and when they leave that university, there's something. They've made something out of themselves. You got doctors, lawyers, lawyer. You've made something out of yourself, and that's what I'm more proud of than anything. The wins and losses, I think I totaled it up one time. We had 139 wins total and 250 something losses, I believe what it was. And if I was a coach instead of an equipment man, I'd have been long gone. But I've enjoyed every minute of it.
well,
And once again, I love you kids more than anything.
well, Billy, it certainly was there. As I said earlier, you guys always had a smile, always had a fun time, a good joke. You took your job seriously, and the love was mutual between the players and the staff and what you guys did. And in conclusion, I love that you're interacting with us in this space. Rock Batten says to tell you hello. And
Oh,
a big thank you and appreciation from him as well.
yeah, Rock's coaching out at Edgewater.
Well, we had a great conversation recently. I'm glad to know him. I didn't know him earlier, but I'm glad to know him now. So many guys, just great men, that's for sure. But Billy, thank you, my friend. I hope you stay safe. I hope our paths cross again real soon, hopefully this fall, maybe at a ball game, if the world allows us to come back to some sense of normalcy. But thank you. But guys, this will conclude us for just an awesome discussion with Billy, a trip down memory lane as we do our conversations with Commodores. We're going to come to you again next week and the week after. I posted, we've got a whole bunch of good folks coming up. So thank you for all of your participation, your encouragement, your comments. Keep sending me names, folks you want to hear from, and I'll find them and we'll get them on here. But Billy, you have a good evening, my friend. Be well.
Love you.